Hi, my name is Wayne Bruce, and I'm the founder and managing director of Ccentric Group. Well, I started Ccentric back in 2001, and it's amazing that we're still around and have grown and prospered over that period of time. And we're celebrating 20 years, which is a great achievement for everyone that's been involved in the business. Not only our staff, but obviously our customers, our clients and candidates that we deal with every day. Oh, I think greatest accomplishment, there's probably been a few that I would mention. I think first and foremost would be the impact that our work has had on communities that we're recruiting into. So whether it's a surgeon or a CEO or a director of nursing, there's obviously a variety of jobs we recruit to, and they all sort of have an integral role at the end of the day of fulfilling the organisation's mission, which is to deliver, the best possible care to patients in the case of hospitals or other consumers of healthcare. So I think all of us are very proud that we've developed a high quality service that can recruit great people into these jobs. So I think that we go home at night and we can feel proud of what we do. So I think that's the most significant impact. I think secondly, we've been able to develop a great internal culture within the business, which has allowed us to attract really high quality staff and that enjoy working with the business. And so we have extremely long tenure of our consultants and supporting staff. So, that's a secret to success for any business. So I think that's been a great achievement as well. The biggest lesson I've learned, I think, is that, any business has its ups and downs, and you need to be able to be resilient and roll with the punches, so to speak. Running a small business is no easy feat, really. But I think, I think that's been the most difficult thing in some ways, when revenue's not coming in, you've got wages to pay and so on, but we've always managed to do that. Next decade in the business, I think, hopefully the business will continue to grow and have a positive impact on society and on people. Yeah, going into the third decade, it's obviously about being nimble, being aware of what's going on in the market or could go on in the market, and being as innovative and flexible as we can be. We've established our digital health practice a couple of years ago. That's obviously going to be a major focus moving forward, as there's increasing needs for people in that area across the health spectrum. So I think we'll really see that that will grow. But yeah, I think it's continuing on the work we've been doing. The decision to join with Wavelength seemed to make a lot of sense. Claire Ponsford was one of the two owners of Wavelength, and I had known Claire in a limited sense, but we had met each other 2 or 3 times over 20 years at industry functions and so on. So anyway, we decided to catch up for a drink after work about 3 years ago, and one thing led to another, and we ended up having a very early preliminary discussion about perhaps bringing the two businesses together. And the rationale for that, in essence, was that Wavelength, recruit in the medical area, and a lot of that work is regional and some metropolitan work, of course. But there was an incredible synergy between the two businesses, because essentially where Wavelength stopped recruiting is where Ccentric starts. So, when we're recruiting doctors, we're recruiting medical heads of department and so on into major tertiary hospitals, really. And so that was the area we focused on, whereas Wavelength focused on different areas. So there wasn't any overlap in the business, but there was incredible synergy. And of course, a lot of the clients at Ccentric work with are or could be clients of Wavelength, and that's certainly proven to be the case over the last couple of years. Those clients that have needs at the medical workforce level as well as the executive level have, enjoyed having a group that's been potentially able to meet all their needs. And the second reason was that both companies had been around for a long time, now 20 years for Ccentric and 23 years, I believe, for Wavelength this year. So they had very similar cultures. They were very customer focused, very quality focused, and very staff focused. And so once we joined the group, the integration of the two businesses was incredibly easy. And, the strength of the Ccentric brand is recognised to sit alongside the Wavelength brand. And I think it's been very good for everyone involved. If I could go back in time, look, I think I've always been quite good at the sort of administrative side of the business as well. But I think what you learn early on as a business is the first thing you need is an extremely good accountant that can advise you on, cash flow and ensuring you put away enough money for tax and et cetera, et cetera. So, that's their bread and butter work. So they will know things that, you running your own recruitment business wouldn't be aware of. So I think that's incredibly valuable to have a good financial accounting advisor. And secondly, from time to time, not very often, fortunately, but, there are times where you'll also need a good legal advisor that can have a quite pragmatic approach, when you need advice in terms of employee contracts or once or twice sort of an issue with a client that you've got to resolve. So I think that would be my advice to people, would be to surround themselves with not only good staff, but good advisors. And I think also we've always wanted to work with companies that we're representing and recruiting for them. We want to be able to put our hand on our heart when we talk to candidates about an opportunity in the company and, truly believe that it would be a good career move for them to consider. And once or twice we've started work with a new client, and during the course of that first process, we've felt that we couldn't 100% represent that, and so we've chosen to move away from those clients for the sake of our candidates and for our own personal integrity. Probably the most useful advice I've had was from a chap by the name of Shane Milsom in the mid 80s. It would have been mid to late 80s that I worked in the vocational rehab sector in Victoria, based out of Geelong, and Shane was the regional manager and I reported into him. Anyway, at the time I was a rehab counsellor, and dealing with, clients in that context was the person that had been injured, and you were helping them get back to work and put their life together physically, psychosocially, et cetera, et cetera. And so I went to Shane and I said, there's this sort of super duper rehab counsellor course going that takes 2 weeks. Could I go? And he turned around and said to me, you're an idiot. You've actually got a lot of potential in the management area, I feel, and I think you should go off and study an MBA. So I reflected on that, and it was probably the best piece of career advice I'd ever been given, because that set me on the path of doing an MBA. During the course of the MBA, a chap by the name of Bob Gilliver, who was in my study group, and he was also the finance director at Lincroft Consulting, where through knowing him, I ended up meeting Jeff Slade, who was the owner of that business, and that's where I got my first opportunity to move into executive recruitment. And I found that I loved it, and I'd found what I would call my vocation in life. So every day I go to work and I really look forward to it pretty much every day and really enjoy what I do, and, you know, still have a spring in my step. So there you go. That was good advice from Shane. Thank you, Shane.